Hello everybody, March 17th, 2023. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We're going to review what I said on Monday. We got a bullish surprise, obviously, that has continued. The bulls have continued to take over. And so I was looking at these as the main scenarios here. The blue bullish scenario, ideally we would have seen a move to this 25.8 to 26.6 area, followed by a pullback to about 23.3. We did see this hold as resistance, and we did see a move down. It only went to about 23.8 though. So the question is that enough? Is that close enough for this to still be at play? I did mention during the video, I didn't write it up because I just don't have, I can't write up every single scenario, but I mentioned in the video that the orange scenario that I had taken off might actually still be at play if we went up to that sort of 27, 28 area. That's where we are now, so it's something to consider. And then the bear scenario, this is the big concern with this extension. Since we didn't quite make that move to 23.3-ish, we didn't quite hit that. I am concerned that we are just extending upwards too much in a straight line. We are now in this area here. So it is at the point where it could be just a large ABC. That means we might see some major bearish moves soon, which could eventually bring us down to about 10K or even lower. Now, we don't have evidence yet of a top. We don't have evidence of this bearish scenario starting yet. But we do need to pay attention to it. We need to be aware of it. And this warning that I gave, I'm going to give it again here. The market right now is pricing in a 0% chance that the Fed will raise the rates by 0.5%. They think there's no chance at all. And I don't believe that there is zero chance. I think there is a chance, which would be a huge bearish surprise. If we see a 0.5 point raise on Wednesday, we might then see this scenario begin to play out, because that would really shock the markets, I think, pretty significantly. Now, it's hard to predict how the market reacts to these sorts of things, but in the face of such a large hike, after all the bank failures and the money printing and blah, 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 it could very well reverse the bullishness that we've seen. So I think, if we get a quarter hike, I think we can still see either the blue or the orange bull scenario play out. Obviously, if we see no hike at all and the Fed is very dovish, that would be a recipe for a large pump as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what the Fed does. But I do want to put that out there, that there is a chance, whereas the market right now believes there's no chance. There is a chance that the Fed actually does raise 0.5 percentage point, which I went over my reasoning in that summary. All right, so let's take a look here now at Bitcoin, and I'll show you what I mean about the orange scenario. You can see this was my original ideal place. So this scenario, orange, would have looked really, really nice. I would have no problem at all if it looked like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, this being bottom. If this didn't happen, and then we proceeded upwards to that orange right there, that's the scenario I was hoping for in the beginning, because it would have made a really nice 5-wave pattern up. However, this came down and it broke the 0.5 fib of this wave 3. Now you can see that's 19,750. It just barely broke it and then started a major rally up. So can it still be a possibility that that's our wave 4? I suppose. I don't like it, obviously, when things break even just briefly when they break the level, but it is a possibility. So I do still have that on there, and we now have what kind of looks like 5 up, to be honest. Let me revise this just slightly. This would be our 5th wave. Here's 3, 4. We'll get rid of that. All right. So here we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right up into the orange zone that was originally being called for in that orange scenario. So it's conceivable if we see the pullback now, if we see it happen now, we can see a nice big three-wave pullback. This could actually, hang on, let me get rid of this blue fib real quick here. This would be our initial 5 up, okay? And then we can see a large pullback. We can even come back down to sub 20K, to be honest, as a second wave. So I know it seems insane that we can go from 20 all the way up to 27 and then come back down to around that 20K area. Now it doesn't have to go all the way down there, but it could. So let me put the larger orange box on. This will change if we proceed upwards a little bit more, but for now I'm going to put it on assuming that we've hit the top. And I'll put the ideal zone on here. I'm going to put this in orange. Again, I'm not 100% convinced by this, but if we see a nice big corrective pullback soon into this area, and it has to look corrective, we've got to see it do 3 waves. Otherwise, as I said, if we see something that looks clearly impulsive downwards, then we're going to be in the scenario where we're shooting down to 10K. So we need to watch it real close to see what it does. But if we see a corrective structure down here to about 19K to 22.2, that would be the ideal area for that larger orange second wave to go. So alternately, blue scenario, as I said, I was not super happy with the micro. Like this is fine here. This 1 to here and 2 to here, that's fine. It went into the blue second wave zone. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is this first wave. And initially, as I said, I wanted to see this get hit, that 618, and then a pullback to the 382. That is ideal. If we can do that first wave, second wave, then we can be pretty sure that we are going up hard into the third wave after that. However, not only did we not reach the 382, you can see we're decently far away from it. But, it really didn't even look like the correction was complete, which makes me a bit worried. You want to see a 3-wave move, which technically that's 3 waves, but that C is really kind of abbreviated, right? So it does make me wary that blue might not be playing out. So again, something we need to continue watching for. I don't really see it as a high probability, but it is possible. This would be our 1, 2, and right now, basically, we just have to continue to see this just pump straight up to 34. And then that's still in the realm of possibilities. If you remember, I said 27 to 34. This can all just be an ABC, and we can die down to 10K. That is still possible, right? This can be A, B, C, and down to 10K. So even getting here doesn't put us out of the woods, but what does is if from there we see corrective pullback to about where we are now, 27.5, and then a bounce and a continuation upwards, that would more obviously clearly tell us that the blue is the scenario playing out, and we can use that going forward then to direct our trades. But for now, we don't have the proof. The orange is still possible. I suppose blue is still possible too. This could be an extended first wave. We would still need to see a second wave down at least to the 0.5, potentially to the 382. So I guess if we see sort of corrective action down here that doesn't reach all the way, we could still be in blue scenario where this is all first wave. So I hope you followed me on that. It is a bit convoluted. There's lots of possibilities here, but my preference would be for either the orange or the blue scenario to continue playing out. My preference would be to see a more appropriate second wave, either like that for blue or like this for orange. Either one is fine, but I would like to see a more appropriate second wave because this doesn't really cut it for me. It looks more like it's part of this initial structure here, to be honest. And if it continues upwards, I'm going to be really, really wary again, unless it can do that corrective pullback, hold that, and then start pushing upwards again. That'd be the only way at that point. You know, basically, once we get through this 1.0 extension, we have to hold the 618. So, and ideally the 764, but absolutely the 618. So that'll be our line in the sand. If it does continue upwards, 25,783 has to hold in order to keep this pushing up. All right, if we are already in that third wave, target is up here eventually at 40K. I don't believe this to be the case, but if we can see this, then this to 40K, then we have a bigger pullback, back down to 30, then we got to push up to about 48. That would look really strong as a first wave off of the low as well. So again, just many, many things to keep an eye on and keep track of. All right, so what's the short version? Short version is, actually before I get to that, let me go over to the daily chart and point something out here that is pretty important. This level right here somewhere in this, you know, I'm going to put a box instead of a line because it's kind of this entire area right here. That is untested resistance. Okay, and it's a gigantic resistance. It acted as support right here. It began to act as support right here and then broke down. And this is the first time we are touching it since May. It looks like maybe June, right? First time we're touching that since June of 22. Now, what happens on support resistance flips typically is the first touch of them gets rejected, usually pretty hard. So again, it's going to be imperative that we see a corrective pullback so that it can then attack it again, either in the blue or the orange, doesn't really matter to me, but what I'm saying is we are likely to see a pullback here in this area, anywhere from here up to 30K. So even though it could sort of, you know, extend up to 34 as that ABC, you know, in red here, it kind of looks to me like it's more likely to top out in this region based on this support zone, old support zone. That should now be resistance. All right, so what's the short version? First off, let me make this red. Short version is that I think we've probably hit top already. That would be kind of my initial position, my initial, like, yeah, it looks like we've topped out. This is very extended. It's in that first touch of an old, you know, support flip. And it looks like, you know, for orange scenario or for blue scenario to play out, this would be kind of the last place that it can do that and look good. So I'm expecting a pullback. I'm not playing that. I'm not shorting this, right? Because it could just push through. And obviously if it did, it would involve some pretty large short liquidations, most likely. But it's again something that we need to watch for is a pretty significant pullback from here, potentially back down into the low 20s. Okay, I think either blue or orange, we can use the fourth wave in either of those scenarios, this 4 or this 4, to kind of get an idea. So we're kind of at least going to 23.8, in my opinion, like 24K area. But potentially, again, like I said, down to test this 4 again, about 19.6. But anywhere in that zone is fine. And let me put on, I'll tell you what, I'm going to say this is the blue zone right here. All right, so again, short answer for what I expect is at least a pullback to the blue zone, potentially a pullback to the orange zone, and then we'll go from there. What I know is a possibility, because anything is possible, but I view as unlikely, is Bitcoin pushing through this resistance and getting all the way to 34. I would have to lean in favor of the bulls. If we got to 34 because of that resistance, I'd lean in favor of the bulls, but I would still expect to pull back to around 27 from that area. Just so it plays nicely with the fibs. So yeah, I think that sums up my my thoughts on that. Likely a pullback happening in the very near future. Can we push up a little bit more? Yeah, we could see maybe a micro new high, and orange would still be in play there potentially. We could see this continue all the way to 30. If we see this just continue up to 30, then I would lean, and then we reject, I would actually lean more in favor of the 10K scenario at that point. So I think that's kind of my chart of probabilities there. Like, best probability right now is just a pullback. If we get to 30 and then reject, 10K is most probable. If we get to 34 and then reject, it is possible that blue is playing out then, and 27.5 or so would be the place to buy. Okay, yeah, I think that's all I got. So we'll see what the weekend brings, and we'll go from there. And then, obviously we'll see what Monday trading brings as well. Definitely be ready for continued volatility as traders get increasingly antsy before the Fed announces their decision. And then obviously their actual decision announcement on Wednesday is going to be quite interesting for the markets as well. Be ready for a bearish surprise. I'd prefer if it didn't happen, but you got to be ready for anything. All right, guys, have a good weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday.